Thank you so much for joining us. It is time for Off the Hook with Matty D. You're saying, what is this? Well, my goal on this show, and this is the inaugural show, is to explain how great the fishing is locally here in Central Virginia, or within about an hour or two drive. There's so many wonderful resources here, but I'm not just going to do this myself. If you're going to talk about fishing, you have to go to the experts. And I couldn't think of anybody better to join me than Captain Simon Valencia of Current Culture Fly Shop. Simone, you're a great friend of mine, and I truly do thank you for coming in today.
You're too kind, Maddie. I hard to call myself an expert, lifelong learner.
Well, I think we always are learning, right, as we're talking about fishing and fly fishing and just the waters, because the waters change all the time. I mean, it's not like the river today is very different than the river 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, the way you approach it is going to be tremendously different. I mean, whenever it goes up, I always blame you. If it goes down, I always blame you. You're always out here creating these crazy weather patterns that tough for us to work around. But the cool thing is that with a good understanding of how the entire ecosystem reacts to all of these events, we can find success on the water almost every day as long as we're being safe and watching those river levels, which you're really good at keeping people updated on.
I think it's important, right? It really is. It's a great river to be on. We'll talk about the James, of course, but it can be very dangerous. We've heard about tragic stories, not to really bring this down. But let's talk about this. One of the things that you do at Current Culture, you and all of your guides, you teach about the ecosystems, the ecology, the area. You're not just, let's go catch fish.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, really, fly fishing in particular, which is what we do some light tackle as well, but fly fishing in particular is about connection. And it's not just, because it's the hardest way to possibly catch fish. There might be a few harders, maybe if you just go in and try to grab fish by hand. But the challenge of it is that the kind of fishing we do asks of us to understand the ecosystem in a specific way. It asks of us to know what kind of insects and what kind of minnows are in the system and how they react to hot water and where they go when the water begins to cool down and how they see, because we're targeting them based mostly on their sense of sight. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's crucial to actually understand what the water is doing, who lives there, what they're doing, how the predator fish, who we want to catch, how they're feeding and how they're moving. So we have to dig deep into what is actually going on in there. We have to really focus on everything that lives there and understand it as a whole ecosystem. Understand the birds, understand the barometric pressure, understand the moon phases, understand the tides, understand all of these things that partly is why I love talking to you, because all
the stuff that I control, according to you.
Well, yeah, you do. I know that switchboard you have back there. I know that that's what's bringing in these storms at the end of the week, right, which we badly need.
Right, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about that. So there's interesting things there. You talk about, bug entomology, knowing what insects are hatching if you're fishing for trout. You got to mimic the dry fly or whatever the case may be. Or when we talk about shad and stripers, it's, fishing that minnow or that something else that mimics what they're going after and targeting. And there's also the fact that we can fish our waters for free, which is unbelievable. And this is the 4th of July. A little bit of background here you brought to me before we were talking on air. When we were under the rule of Britain, waters are owned in the UK by landowners. There's the
Correct.
King's Law. That is not the case here in the United States. There's some exceptions that still fall under the King's Law. Explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, this is, as an angler and as a guide and someone who makes my life on the water, the biggest, most important thing that is most immediate that came from our independence from the British is that we have the North American conservation model puts almost all of the water in a public trust. It's yours, it's mine, it's all of ours, really. And it has created a culture where people can go out on the water almost wherever they want to, as long as they have a fishing license, and target the fish, right? You can travel through all of our navigable waterways, you can fish them, you can anchor, the bottom is yours, it's mine, the fish in it are ours. And that's not the case under the British conservation model, where landowners or fishing clubs own the water, the fish in it, the bottom. And in order to access it, you have to pay a landowner or be the landowner. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for us, making Virginia the great state that it is to fish and interact with our resource, right?
Let's talk a little bit about who you are. You opened Current Culture Fly 5 years ago now? 6 years ago?
No, so the brick and mortar opened 2002.
Oh, wow, was that long ago? Okay.
Yeah, so it's been 2.5 years for the brick and mortar shop, which is conveniently
2002 or 2020?
2022. Sorry.
22. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can't count.
It's okay. It's early in the morning. You haven't had enough coffee yet.
That's true.
But in the shop, I mean, obviously, look, rods, reels, education. I'm going to go through a couple of pictures here.
Yeah.
This is a table that you often use for fly time. You sell a wide variety of rods. Yeah.
Can you scroll back to that
Yeah,
image?
absolutely. Sure.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the layout of the shop.
Yeah.
So we started as a guide service. And as we were getting the shop together, we were already on the water. What you see here is the front end of the shop is set up for classes. It's set up as a social space. It's set up as a community space. And on any given day when you come in, you'll find people tying flies. We also have fly tying classes that are super affordable. We have free casting lessons. We have social tying events through the winters. This is one of our good buddies and phenomenal muskie and smallmouth guide, Austin Conrad, who works mostly on the New River. And here he is giving a presentation on how to catch more smallmouth bass. This is one of our captains, Captain Keegan Lemke, who is specializing in gar. And he's teaching how to, this is a class right here where he's teaching people how to tie. This is Mike Rennie teaching one of his own signature patterns to anglers. And all of these educational experiences are there because fly fishing has been mystified for so long.
Yep.
And it really is just another way to fish. It's a really interesting way to fish. It's a really challenging and fun way to fish. But it really is just another way to fish. So we try to make everyone feel at home, and there's a group of women who have their own women's club. Of course, women are always welcome and meant to feel at home whenever they come into the shop. But for the longest time, fly fishing has been
a men's elitist sport was always the way it was thought of. It isn't.
It doesn't have to be.
Right.
It really doesn't have to be. And we love creating the space to make it easy for just about everybody to come in, learn how to do it. If you spend enough time at the shop for free, but we also package it in ways that are like comprehensive classes, which you charge, what I like to say, a very
nominal fee, fairly small.
Fairly small fee for hours and hours of instruction with all the gear set up for you and whatnot. So the goal for us is really to get new people in the door, particularly because from a conservation approach, I truly believe, and my business partners, Reed and Ethan, truly believe that the best way to create a conservation-minded community is to connect them with the resource, right? And the more you understand it, the more you interact with it, the more you're likely to protect it and respect it. So for us, there is, of course, the business portion of it. More new people that come in, the better we do as a business. But there's also a deeper mission, which is to conserve and enjoy all of our waterways.
And Simone, not only do you do fly tying classes here, but you also do casting clinics to get those first time anglers, beginners, a rod in their hands. You go to a park, you explain how to cast. But even before you get to that park, it's like, look, there's a couple of things you need to know here before we put a hook on and we go into the water.
Absolutely. So, the biggest obstacle with fly fishing in particular, and we do some light tackle on our guided trips as well, right? All of our guides will do light tackle with a spin rod. So this is not just for fly anglers, but we do focus on our fly anglers because I think it's a really intimate relationship with the water. But the biggest difference between those two is the cast, right? Like you can cast a spin rod pretty intuitively because it's similar to the way you've thrown everything in your life. With a fly rod, what you're doing is you're attaching a 9-foot spring to your arm, and then you're building energy into what's essentially 100 feet of linguine, which is the fly line,
right.
over time. So it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel natural. So in order to get people to that point, we have to have a few conversations and then do some classes on land. Usually, we do these casting clinics for free, where all the gear is provided on Sundays. They do fill up. They're free, but I don't want a class of 20 people. That's not good for anybody. So we have class sizes of 6 people. So people will come in, we'll have a long conversation about the physics and the history of casting, and then go out, put a rod in their hand, and get them going. Usually by the end of that 2-hour period, which is probably an hour of me rambling about physics, and then about an hour of actually casting, we have a fishable cast. We have a cast that we could go down to the James River, which is half a mile from the shop, and realistically have a shot at catching smallmouth bass or gar or carp or bowfin, all of these really great species that live right downtown.
Let me see if I can do this correctly. So, when you look at the cast, it is a beautiful cast. This is you, so the number one, we're going to put that. But you're going for drum here. This is down, I believe, in South Carolina a couple of weeks ago. And we'll get into some of the species of fish that we can even catch here, which is drum. But like you said, it is a back and forth type of mechanic. It's a fulcrum, if you will, where that line just glides out and lands, and it's got to be perfectly placed. You can't make the splash. There is some stuff to it for sure.
It's not easy, but because it's not easy, I like to compare it a lot to yoga.
Okay.
Right? In my head, this is a movement. When you're casting, it's a moving meditation. You're completely focused on your movement and the way that it feels, and there's not a thought about your taxes or your mortgage or your job. Just the act of fly casting takes all of your concentration, all of your effort goes into that moment where you're being deliberate about the way your body moves, and to me that's very meditative, right? Nothing else can fit in your mind. And the best thing about it is the worst thing that happens is you don't catch the fish. You still had fun.
You still have fun, right?
You're not thinking about the things that worry you, and there might be a treat at the end of it, So that to me is the beauty of fly casting. It's very similar to how people like to describe yoga. It's a moving meditation for me. So
we have the fly tying, we have the casting clinics here. Let's get into what people can catch locally here in Central Virginia. Bowfin.
Bowfin is a great fish. This is Captain Keegan Lemke. He's hopefully going to join us for one of these episodes. He's working Central Virginia tidal waterways in freshwater. Bowfin is a really cool species. There's 2 species that are native and prehistoric that we have in this area. Bowfin and gar. Bowfin finished more or less evolving about 100 million years ago. They have a primitive lung. They gulp air. So when the water gets really hot and there's not a lot of dissolved oxygen in the water, these fish come really close to the surface and breathe. This is a very medium bowfin. They're very big. They feed on frogs, they feed on mice, they feed on crawfish, and you can sight cast them, right? You can see them hanging around lily pads, and you can see them hanging in like sitting on the grass. Very exciting stuff. Also incredible fighters.
And all of those things are patterns, frogs, beetles, bugs, that you can tie. People think, oh, I can only tie a fly. You can tie all these other type of animals, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have mouse flies. I've seen people tie iguanas. I've seen people tie ducklings. And predator fish eat ducklings.
Right.
2 years ago, we were fishing on the James, and we saw a striped bass come up for a duckling. So you mimic what they're eating, and you use all these other materials that we have ready at the fly shop, so that you can tie something that's adequate to whatever's going on in the ecosystem. That whatever those fish are keyed in on, whatever they're feeding on, that's what we want to present to them. So you can tie minnows, crawfish. You can tie, of course, little mayflies and caddisflies and stoneflies and salmon flies. You can tie grasshoppers. You can tie cicadas. We have some really good friends that have been tying cicadas and doing really well on carp, which is an incredible species to target. And it's a really beneficial, somewhat invasive. It is invasive, but there's a purpose to having them in the water, and that is to control the algae and the grasses. So they do a lot of good for our ecosystem. And they're an amazing game fish. People don't see it as that, but they're an incredible game fish.
So I brought up a picture here. I'm going to bring it back up for you because you posted it the other day. Now, look, catfish we know are throughout the James.
Yeah.
Right? Blue cats were introduced back in the 70s, and they became extremely invasive. They are now. So we're asking people to keep them and to eat them, especially blue cats. We have flatheads. But you even posted the other day, I think on your Instagram, I'm going to say it, catfish on the fly are fun. And you never thought you'd say that. But pound for pound, they just go down and pull.
They just pull. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of conservation issues with catfish, and the word on how to handle them, I'm not sure authority on that. They're there, and they are so plentiful. And they will eat a fly. People think that, and part of the reason why we have conservation issues with them is that they are not the bottom feeders people think they are. They will chase minnows. They will eat crawfish. Blue crabs are becoming blue catfish are becoming more and more salt tolerant, and they're eating blue crabs further down the James.
It's unbelievable.
And they're finding them full of crabs. So these fish are willing to take a fly. This one took a fly. You can see there, that's 14th Street. That's right downtown.
Yep.
That's no secret to anyone. Anyone driving on 95 knows this spot.
Yep.
This guy put in a cast and hooked into something big.
And came up with that.
And this fish was, I mean, look at that belly. This was during we were striped bass fishing.
Right.
And this fish had probably eaten every perch it could get.
You can see the distended stomach there for sure.
It's like a basketball in its belly.
Let's talk a little bit about some fishing to our east, because the James flows into the Chesapeake Bay. And look, there are two fish that you love to chase right there, the cobia. I mean, there's the smile right there.
Oh,
look
man.
at that, yeah.
Oh, cobia are so cool, right? We're talking about, non-invasive native fish. I call this man my crazy Uncle Wayne. He's one of our guides. He is a true mentor to me. He's, in 10 years, I aspire to be half as good as this guy. This is Captain Wayne McMasters. He targets cobia on the fly in the Chesapeake Bay. And it's such a cool experience. You're out there cruising around. He has a beautiful 32-foot Boston whaler with a ton of power, and he puts you in this casting cage up front, and you're out there looking and looking and looking and looking, and then you see this. This is the boat. Baylor and Captain Reed. This is all our boys here. Are up on the tower scouting, looking for them. And when we see one just cross the path, we put that fly just in front of them and strip. There's another cobia. There's Reed with a cobia, and they just hook up. It's so visual. The connection with that fish is so visual. They look like they're smiling when they're chasing your fly. You hook them. Of course, we function fully as a catch and release operation,
Right?
Because we are out there all the time, not against the ethical harvesting of fish, but we function as an operation as catch and release. So we put these guys back in the water. These were all released fish.
And the second one you love to chase in the shallows is the drum redfish.
So that's my true love. That's my true love. This photo was taken within an hour of Richmond. We were chasing these fish on a grass flat, and saw this guy's tail out, went under. This guy's last name is DiNardo. your lost long cousin.
Yep.
And Greg, he's actually. I want to talk about Greg a little bit because he's exactly my ideal guest. Greg has become an incredible angler. He put the perfect cast in front of this fish. It ate. And that's tricky, right? You don't get many shots at these fish. You have to put that fly where it goes. You have to not spook them. It's a delicate, difficult presentation when you're casting at them in 8 inches of water. The fins of this fish were out of the water.
Right.
Its belly on the bottom. Greg came to us because his wife, when we were just getting started, we were doing a lot of giveaways to build a brand, build a name, build a reputation. His wife won a trip and brought him out. And he had never fly fished. She had never fly fished. They just wanted to get out on the James. They were like, yeah, we catch a fish, great. We get out on the James, and it's one of those incredible days of striped bass fishing. And they're hooking one left and right with short casts, just very beginner casts, first day of fly casting, and they're just having a time of their lives. They come to the lessons, they come to the fly tying classes, they book trips, they continue on this path, and Greg now has become a really stellar angler. He's about 3 years in and has become a really stellar angler. Congratulations on the baby, Greg, by the way. Greg's and he's become kind of part of the family, you know. He comes back again and again for tips. He wants to fish downtown. He wants to fish the bay. He wants to go. We've gone out for cobia. We've gone out for bluefish. He's caught mackerel on the fly. He's caught largemouth, smallmouth. He's become a really well-rounded angler, and that's really our mission. Take somebody like Greg who's never casted a fly rod and give him the tools to catch really difficult fish to catch.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years in, right? Now this is part of his life, and now he has a different kind of connection with his waterways. He has a different kind of connection with his entire world, really. It's a really, fly fishing is a cool lens to see the world. So he's an ideal. In my head, we have a few people that have come in with nothing and have become really great anglers, and that's really what we're here to do.
And you mentioned fishing to reds or drums in really shallow water. This is, I mean, the grasses are 12 inches, 16 inches, so you are fishing, and it's super, those fish can see. They can see you just as well as you're seeing them, and one bad cast, and bye, they're done. Have a nice day. You just wasted time.
And they can go anywhere, right? They have the entire Chesapeake Bay to run around in. But when it happens in this super shallow water, it's so incredibly rewarding. You have to like read the body language of the fish, and you have to put that cast just right and twitch that fly just right, and they will eat if you do everything right. But it just takes us to some really gorgeous places like this. Previous picture you just went through.
This one?
This is the water that we're working for these fish. It's just gin clear, shallow. You see everything in it. You see crabs, you see rays, you see the bait fish, you see the mullet, you see schools of fish pulling up on you. We took these two guys out a couple of weeks ago, and within the first 20 minutes, the comment that stuck out to me was like, "This is just like a huge aquarium," and I'm like, "Exactly, it's like a huge aquarium. It's just the experience of seeing this, seeing the birds, seeing the grasses. To me, it's worth being out here."
You forget about your day-to-day grind, and you get a chance to enjoy just being out, one with nature. As you said earlier, even if you don't catch a fish, there's, you book a trip for 6 hours or 8 hours, and it's just, I don't have to think about anything else but this, what I'm doing. I'm not worried about, did I make budget? Did I, make that call? Did I sell that house? Whatever it is that you do, did I get the forecast right?
Yeah.
Of course I got the forecast right. But the point is, let me continue on here. We're going to go. So you mentioned gar a little while ago. We have 2 pictures of gar. This is what people normally see, the needle-nose gar, and then that one as well.
This is a chain pickerel.
Chain pickerel, right.
Which is another species we chase in the tidal waters in Central Virginia, another native fish.
Right.
But this is a gar that we got downtown.
Yep, you can see the background.
We got downtown. So, again, the number of species we have nearby is just incredible, but gar is just so cool. Also have a primitive lungs, so they gulp air when the oxygen in the water evaporates into the air. So the hotter it gets, the better it gets, and what better place to be than on the water on like the days we've been having, right? Today we get a little break, eh?
Yeah, and then we have largemouth and smallmouth as well. And on a fly. A popper on a fly. People don't think about that. You could still, like you're used to a spinning rod, you throw a popper out there and you're popping. You do the same thing with the fly rod. You're strip pop.
Yeah, it's not very different, right? At the end of the day, the main difference is your cast. But what you're trying to imitate and how you're trying to convince these fish to eat is going to be the same. It's going to be similar. So, just in town, just within city limits, we have in the spring 4 species of sea-run herring that come up. White perch, which is actually a bass, but that's the way it's named, and striped bass that run into the system here. Here's one of the herring. This is a hickory shad, and that's in the spring. And then so we're up to 6 species. Then we have bowfin, gar, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, 3 species of catfish. We're at 13. Carp, and grass carp and common carp. So we're up to 15 species. Take them off the motor.
Walleye.
There you go.
Which we have downtown in marginal numbers, but they are there. And a whole bunch of different species of panfish and crappie. We have over 20 species hanging around from let's say Ankara's Landing, upfall of the James to Pony Pasture.
That's it.
What, 6-mile run by river, 20-mile run by land, by using roads. Yeah.
And you have so many great access points, right?
Yep.
And we find that people who engage by fishing like to take care of it. And complain when something's messy and dirty, and participate in our cleanups, and pull out bags of trash every time they go out. So I just want to encourage everyone to go and experience it, because it's right there.
Yeah.
You don't go many places in this country or in this world where you can catch 20 species of fish downtown.
And that's the amazing thing. You have that city back, as you add some of the pictures, it's a city backdrop, or the railroad crossing off of the pipeline right there. That is one fat striped bass. And you catch them from schoolies to sometimes 10, 12-pound fish right in downtown.
Right downtown. Yeah, and they get bigger in there too. They're just really hard to catch.
Yeah, of course they are. There's a reason why they're big.
Yeah, they're smart.
Yeah.
Those are, sometimes we get 20, 30-year-old fish. We are definitely going to talk
more striped bass
and shad in one of these episodes. But it is just such an incredible fishery. Most people can't believe where we're fishing for these fish. I mean, we're fishing under 95.
Right.
It's no secret. right there on your backdrop over there, I can see my fishing spots.
You know, yeah. And you've seen me out there as well.
Oh, I see you out there all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like,
so,
does this man work?
yeah,
I'm kidding. I know
I
you
work.
work because I can see you, but I see you out there all the time, and that's the beauty of it, right? You come to work. I know you come super early,
Right.
but you also leave a little early, and
I'm done by noon, and I can be on the river. Of course, I always try to get out there on a bright, sunny day, which is the wrong time to fish, especially for shad. But I only have limited time, and it is what it is. So.
but you go, and it's
go.
right
I
there.
love it.
I mean, we're talking. You're driving 15, 20
15
minutes.
Yep, exactly.
And you're at your fishing hole. And to me, that's more valuable than, a fishery we can't get to.
Right.
A fishery that's already pristine because no one goes to. For me, it's when the striped bass run, everyone connects with those fish and starts to think about the conservation issues of them. And heck, I want to see them here next year.
Yeah.
And the year after. And the year after. And I want my nieces and nephews, I want my kids and grandkids to have this experience. And we start to think about what's in the ecosystem and how can we help these fish thrive so that we can continue to see them and that we can continue to engage with the environment in the way that we do.
Simone, I can't thank you enough for coming here. I'm going to put up a little information, of course, for everybody to know. Current Culture Fly Shop. You give them a call, 802-322-7555. You can scan that QR code to learn more about the fly tying. Follow them on Instagram, by the way. I'll put the Instagram handle up next time. Casting clinics, I think you have one coming up relatively soon.
Sunday at 10 a.m.
Sunday at 10 a.m. And last I checked, you had 4 spots available. Where are we right now?
We're at 4.
4 still. 4
Yeah.
spots still available. Of course, guided trips all the time, either by yourself, by Reed, by Keegan, by Wayne. We're going to meet all these people either in the episodes and different types of fisheries that they go for. It has been my pleasure to have you for episode 1. And let's just let people know you're going to be here through episode 5. I have you booked for the first 5 because I think you offer a lot here for people to really get to know and understand.
That's the goal, man. As a recovering social worker, connecting people with the water and seeing, to me, it's therapeutic. So this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly where I want to be and sharing this kind of information with just about everybody. This is what drives me. So I appreciate you having me.
This is my pleasure once again. Everyone, Captain Simon Valencia of Current Culture Fly Shop. Simone, we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, Matt.